So we've used quite a few manufacturers over the last 3 years, and we have finally found the quality and the consistency that we want. The ability to really focus on surface feed per minute, which is very important when grinding parts. Getting the belts to spin at a certain RPM, getting the feed belt to feed at a certain RPM, and then pairing that with the right motor and the right pulleys so that you can maintain the torque that is needed. It's not about spin it as fast as you can and run it through as slow or as fast as you want. There is a math equation and a science to getting what we call the perfect scratch.
Hi, my name is Ben Biker. I'm a machine operator at Stealth Machine Tools, and today we're going to be highlighting our rapid sander. My personal experience, I am used to having to DA a lot of parts. I've done that for a job in the past. Being able to upgrade to this rapid sander it's a huge upgrade. Being able to quickly process parts, get parts in and out, it's extremely efficient.
So after we turn on the main breakers, you're gonna see over here, we're gonna turn these switches on next. This will do the startup for the machine. All right, so we're gonna turn the conveyor on first. You're gonna see once it's active, you're gonna see the green button start flashing. Then we're gonna go to belt 1, same sequence. You turn that guy on, you're gonna hear the motor start to ramp up, start out slow. Then we're gonna go to belt 2. As you notice, all the on stations are gonna start flashing green. Then we're gonna move into the brush axis. We're gonna turn that guy on. You'll see that flashing. Then we're gonna turn the actual brush on. And then the last station is the polishing drum. And we're gonna move over to material height adjustment. You're gonna show machine position and then material thickness. So for example, if you were running 3/16, you would touch there and go 0.188, enter, and then set the machine thickness, push that button, and you're gonna see the machine position change. Now, when you do a test run from there, if you need to make fine-tune adjustments, there is a knob underneath of the feed bed that you can make fine adjustments, or you could just simply come back in here, 0.17, enter, and then set the thickness, and you'll see the actual change. You're looking for good material engagement so that you get the finish and the scratch that you want when you're grinding the material. Next, coming down here is brush adjustment. This one's a little bit different. You're going to hold the arrow up or hold the arrow down. It's gonna move the whole axis up and down to help with the part engagement. Another really important feature is our status light that is on the machine. So to give example of how that works, if the E-stop was pressed, you can see that the light turns red, and then it also gives you a history of errors or emergency stops or whatever had happened in the machine. So how you would clear that is you would release the button. You'll see that it turns green, and then when you go back to the home screen, you're gonna notice that this button is flashing red, which indicates the error. Simply just push it once. You'll hear the relays click, light will turn green, and you're ready to resume running.
So if I have any different types of materials coming in, different thicknesses, it's really easy to change the depth of the bed. It's just through the user interface. You can set it up for whatever thickness that you need to. You can go from 1 inch all the way down to probably 14 gauge. So the user interface on this machine is very, very simple. My first time walking into it, it's really easy to understand what everything does. All the controls are very, very simple. This is a machine anyone can use.
So usually companies that are just starting out, if they start with a plasma table and then maybe they upgrade to a laser, stepping into a secondary processing machine like a rapid sander is a great companion machine, because what they would do prior to is manual grinding, whether it's a dual action sander or a hand grinder, and the inconsistencies of grinding and then just the manual labor and then the consumable cost on all the abrasives are through the roof. This, you can set the height of the bed, set how much engagement you have, how aggressive you want it to cut, and send your parts through. You can have a table on the end that'll accept the parts, or have a 2-person job where you've got an in feed and then a guy catching parts on the out feed. And it just really makes that process more enjoyable and then faster. So the customer on the other end doesn't get stuck with some crazy labor rates, you know, because obviously if you're doing custom work, sometimes the labor rate is based on the man hours that are being put into the parts. This is for the term of rapid sanding. It can go in and come right out, and it's very consistent. All right, so one thing I want to touch on here is, here's our VFDs. If you focus on the screens here, the frequency is set to 30 on all of these, but below is the actual amp draw for each station. So if you were to add these all up, you're gonna see that the total amp draw is about 85 amps. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn them all up to max draw at 50 so that you can see what this thing will pull at maximum speeds. The amperage will actually go down with higher frequency. So everything on screen is set to 50 at max, and you can see when we get up to running speed, you're gonna actually go down. These are gonna be about 20 to 21 amp draw. Conveyor at full speed, 2.8, 2.9. Polishing is gonna be right at 7.5, and then you have the brush station between 10 and 10.2, and then the rotation axis of the brush at 2.4. So here you can see in real time how fast the brushes are running and rotating. Belt's running at 50, brushes are running at 50, rotational speed at 50. Our polishing drum is at 50, and then each sand station is at 50. One of the really cool features on the machine right behind me is that this is configured in a 208 volt configuration. As most know, it cannot handle the severe power that this thing needs. It requires 250 amps of power being delivered. And as the 208 volt guys know, a lot of times you can't deliver more than 100 amps of service to that machine. So what we did is we essentially built sort of a sub panel within the machine. So we ran 2 runs of 100 amps, and then we also paired that with VFDs. And what the VFDs allow it to do is have a soft start. So at no point in time is there a high spike in draw. And what that means is when you turn on a motor with no soft start or no start capacitor, it is all of the power all at once, and it has a huge spike. Usually if you're got 100 amps of service and the motor requires 75 or 80 amps, you could see a spike as high as 160, 170. Then once the motor gets up to RPM, that amp draw will reduce down to its running power. And you might only see 35 amps of power actually being consumed while it's in rotation, but it's the startup that is very, very aggressive. So for those reasons, our machine can work successfully in a 208 volt scenario and will only maximum draw about 85 amps of power when turning on all the stations individually. You turn one on, wait a couple seconds, turn the next one on. There's no spike. No spike ever to be had or concerned about with blowing fuses or purchasing a machine of this size. All of our machines will come configured with variable frequency drives for that factor. It's easier on the motors, easier on the electronics, easier on all the components when you have a soft start. You could have a heavy draw from the grid that day and not have the VFDs, and you could blow a breaker. There could come a point where, depending on where your shop is and your power feed to the building, you could be victim of just a high draw from the grid. But if we can maintain it and we can keep the draw less than the breaker size, you're never gonna run into an issue. We are running full tilt with the VFDs, all the stations that we talked about, dust collection and vacuum, and we don't draw more than 120 amps. If anybody's in the area or wants to set up an appointment, please give us a call at 877-455-2737. We'd love to set up an appointment. You can come in, demo, touch and feel, and run some parts to see if the Rapid Sander is the right machine for you.